Hi CD, I'm Vladimir. Welcome to my mausoleum.
This is Vladimir Lenin. His embalmed corpse, on display in Moscow, is 101 years old. And word on the street is that corpse has been saying,
"Where is my Architectural Digest home tour video? I want that Walton Goggins upstate New York hunting lodge vibe. I want that Dakota Johnson lime bowl.
I love limes. I love them.
I want my mausoleum in Red Square to have a reno, a rehab, a rebrand, a viral moment."
Earlier this summer, it was announced that Lenin's mausoleum would be closing for some extended period of time because there were some problems. Now, you would think that the problem would be trying to maintain the welcoming visage of a 100-year-old corpse in a glowing glass sarcophagus. But no, the problem is the mausoleum itself. The walls, crumbling, the structure, damage, the ventilation, bad, causing mold, which...
Aren't there enough environmental issues haunting that poor old socialist? Not the mold too, Jeffrey.
After the announcement was made about the mausoleum closing, there are people who are afraid that this is it. The mausoleum will never reopen. Frankly, there are a lot of people who don't want the mausoleum to reopen. I'm going to talk you through the controversy over the continued display of Lenin's body, how Russians feel about their secular relic, and the impressions that I have from my 2019 visit to see Lenin in his mausoleum. Vladimir Lenin, if you're 14 or something, in which case welcome, was a Russian political revolutionary. He founded the Soviet Union, the first large-scale attempt to build a socialist society, and he was the head of this new government until he died in 1924. At the time Lenin died, there was no plan to preserve his corpse for the long term, which is wild when you think about it. This whole giant corpse house in Red Square forever and ever wasn't even on the radar when he died. The original plan was that Lenin's body would lay in state in Moscow for several days to give his followers a chance to pay their respects, and from there he would be given a simple burial in St. Petersburg next to his mother, Maria Ulyanova. Problem was, Lenin's corpse proved to be one of the most popular dead bodies of all time. He received hundreds of thousands of mourners in the middle of a harsh Russian winter. This was the end of January in Russia. It was so cold. How cold was it, Caitlin? It was so cold, it was forbidden to bring children to see Lenin. It was so cold that the chief of the militia, an eyewitness reported, had the whole of his face frozen and may lose his nose or cheeks. Lenin had so many visitors that he was transferred to a temporary mausoleum in Red Square. But Joseph Stalin and other Soviet leaders were starting to see the rabid enthusiasm of the corpse crowds as an opportunity. Lenin, to be clear, did not like his successor Stalin. Lenin even authored a strongly worded pamphlet before his death where he was like,
"I am not sure whether Comrade Stalin will always be capable of using authority with sufficient caution."
Good looking out, Lenin. You called that one.
Wow, Caitlin. Wow.
But Stalin wanted to use Lenin's body to boost the cult around Lenin and canonize Leninism in Russia for the foreseeable future. And a simple embalming wasn't gonna cut it. Enter the Commission for the Preservation of Lenin's Body. In the 1920s, there was no blueprint for this kind of embalming required to keep Lenin looking newly dead indefinitely. Lenin's body would be something of a grand science experiment. Now, typical funeral embalming is done by injecting formaldehyde into the circulatory system. But Lenin's body had been autopsied and embalmed, which had severed most of his usable arteries. Thoughts on how to overcome this? Floating his full body in embalming fluid, deep freezing his body, placing his body in a capsule of pure nitrogen. Eventually they decided on a full body rubber suit to keep embalming fluid against his skin at all times. The rubber suit is under his clothes, with his head and hands peeking out. Work had also begun on the permanent mausoleum made of marble, granite, and labradorite. When workers were digging the foundation, they broke through a sewer pipe, but it was so cold that the hole froze over. Then, surprise, during the spring thaw, the mausoleum flooded with sewage, and a high-ranking member of the Russian Orthodox Church said the sewage was
Holy oil, suited to the relic.
The joke is they didn't like communism. The mausoleum was finished in 1930, 6 years after Lenin's death. And that is where Lenin has been. On public display, except when they're doing the procedures, pretty much ever since. Except for that time in World War II when they evacuated him to Siberia for safekeeping.
Пожалуйста.
In 1953, Lenin got a roommate, his favorite guy, Joseph Stalin, who had had a stroke in March of that year. There was such fervor amongst the thousands that came to pay their respects that people were crushed, trampled, even strangled in the crowd. Depending on who you ask, between 100 and 500 people were killed. Stalin truly was so good at killing people. The same team that worked on Lenin's body also embalmed Stalin. And after a months-long preservation process, Stalin was placed beside Lenin in November of 1953. And Stalin and Lenin would be mausoleum mates until 1961, where, after years of denouncing Stalin, the Communist Party voted to remove Stalin's corpse from Lenin's mausoleum. At the 22nd Party Congress, Dora Abramnova Lazurkina, a party bureaucrat and Lenin follower, stated,
Comrades, I could survive the most difficult moments only because I carried Lenin in my heart, and I always consulted him on what to do. Yesterday, I consulted him. He was standing there before me as if he were alive, and he said,
It is unpleasant to be next to Stalin, who did so much harm to the party.
On Halloween night, Stalin's body was quietly taken from the mausoleum and buried along the Kremlin Wall in the Kremlin Wall necropolis, where his body remains to this day. And here I am with Stalin. Muscovites allegedly took to saying the phrase,
Don't sleep in a mausoleum that doesn't belong to you.
And generally, I feel this is very good advice. Now today, it's hard to get good intel on Lenin's body. The lab in charge of maintaining Lenin hasn't really granted interviews since the 90s. The new management of their lab doesn't want journalists to turn their work into a joke, which they often do, said Alexei Yurchak, a social anthropology professor at the University of California, Berkeley. In recent times, Lenin goes through a regular 2-month-long process called Big Procedures, where he is bathed in formaldehyde and various other baths, like the Damien Hirst shark. I think I'm, in this case, the journalist they're worried about making the joke, but it is just like the Damien Hirst shark. That's like a fair comparison. If parts of Lenin's body are caught lacking, that is, decaying or mildewing, they are replaced with wax and his remaining skin filled with an artificial fat, kind of like a corpse Botox. And this whole glam squad is government funded. But Lenin isn't the only one dealing with decay. People come from all over the world to pay homage at the mausoleum, this temple of corpse preservation. But the temple needs some preservation too. The mausoleum is currently closed for emergency repairs that officials say will restore and modernize the mausoleum. They're also claiming that this will not affect the memorial hall and Lenin will not be removed. Finding out exactly what they're repairing is pretty difficult. The claim is that the cost will be equivalent to $250,000 USD, which seems low to me, and the restoration will include repairs to the stone panels, load-bearing walls, fixing insufficient ventilation, frame structures, peeling paint, and, like I said, mold, Lenin's kryptonite.
Нет, Caitlin, нет!
As I mentioned, I have been to see Lenin. The year was 2019, and I was there speaking at the Moscow Urban Festival.
Don't get too excited. That's my only Russian.
Moscow is an incredibly weird and wonderful city, and I'm sorry for who is running it right now. Of course, when I was there was one man I wanted to meet, and that man was a corpse. We arrived about 30 minutes before the mausoleum opened and joined a line of people that was already stretching several hundred yards through Red Square. And I was lucky enough to go with Kat, who is an actual Russian, and right away she's like,
None of these people in this line are actual Russians.
real Russians, especially younger people, just don't go to see Lenin.
Почему?
Now, before the fall of the Soviet Union, there were mandatory visits to the corpse of Lenin. Kat's mother said that they would
Bring us kids into the mausoleum to have Lenin kind of welcome you into the Communist Party.
And she has a memory of childhood of feeling relief seeing the sun again after the descent into this dark tomb. At about 10 a.m., the line we were in starts to inch forward. And there was a young Australian woman in front of us who turns around and is like, "Are you Caitlin?" And it turns out she was an embalmer. And what she told me was like, "There are some embalmers that really hate you." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, girl, I know that." But here's my sincere question. American embalmers, I think, kind of love Lenin, like the corpse of Lenin, because he's the most famous embalmed guy of all time. But for the folks with the Make Embalming Great Again hats, how do you deal with the communism? This is a genuine question. If a certain type of embalmer is hate watching right now, let us know. Like, is this a cognitive dissonance thing that you can maintain? The communism and the long-term embalming. Our turn finally arrives. We get to the front of the line and we enter the mausoleum, which is this squat, imposing building. And to get to Lenin, you have to pass numerous uniformed guards, and they are silent and they are stone-faced, and there's Niet smiling aloud. And it's extremely solemn and serious, except all of the stanchions separating the lines were left over from the 2018 FIFA World Cup, which I think if I was brand manager of the mausoleum, I would have just gone with black. There was an information plaque that said the temperature inside Lenin's room always had to be that of a crisp May morning. So if you walk down these lines and you turn a final corner and there's a glow suffusing the space, and there he is, the architect, the great helmsman, the father, the leader, the liberator, in his crystal casket, lit up red, not sinister red, like not even communist, like more of a pink. It's like the rose light bulbs used in funeral homes to hide flaws in the dead body. And Lenin, in his dark suit and his bald head and his mustache, he kind of looks like any dead body on display at a Midwestern funeral home. You can't take pictures, and it's all over so quickly because they want to keep the line moving. And we emerged out of the mausoleum and into the sunlight. And if you cross Red Square, the guards are outside and now they're like vaping and talking. And directly across from the mausoleum is a department store called The Goom, which is a capitalist shopping paradise. Fun fact about Goom, actually a complete bummer of a fact, is after the death by suicide of Stalin's second wife in 1932, her body was given an open casket wake for party officials in the Goom department store. So we're at the bottom of the Goom, across from the Lenin Mausoleum, drinking Diet Cokes, eating cherry blintzes. Drake is blasting through nearby speakers, and you feel almost high after that experience. It's like a weird descent and rebirth. And Kat, the Russian I was with, had never been to see Lenin, though she had lived in Moscow her whole life, and she was indulging me by making this trip. But what she did say is that we're surrounded by Lenin's face all day. And that's true, Lenin's face is everywhere in Moscow. And she said it was kind of like meeting up with someone you know, like a celebrity. In the coming days, as a favor to me, Kat would survey all of her friends in their 20s and 30s, asking if they had ever been to visit Lenin, and the universal answer was no. Her grandfather thought Lenin's captivity in Red Square was a fate worse than death, and he said he felt sorry for the guy. One of her friends questioned why Lenin's body should still be there at all. It didn't make sense keeping a mummy in a country that's supposed to be democratic. Supposed to be democratic was a little foreshadowing there. And I was genuinely surprised to learn how badly a big portion of the Russian population feels for Lenin, who is caught in this stasis, this post-mortem performance. And they know the keeping of his body forever is a fool's errand, that Lenin, despite his very eager staff, will continue to keep falling apart. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, there are those who have called for Lenin's removal and burial and the demolition of his mausoleum. But burying Lenin isn't that simple. Boris Yeltsin wanted to bury him, even said he was going to bury him, but he didn't have the political clout to bury him. The Communist Party, though no longer the dominant power, strongly opposed burying Lenin and fought Yeltsin on it. Yeltsin had to resign in 1999. Lenin got to stay. Historian and author Alexander Etkind said,
Post-Soviet Russians are in a state of warped mourning, that Lenin is held in a liminal space where he is all at once the Lenin of the revolution, Lenin in post-Soviet Russia, and also a man awaiting burial. A corpse, part organic, part artificial, displayed in this open coffin, yet to see the earth.
Vladimir Putin also gives Lenin's burial a wide berth and said he doesn't want to stir things up. Oh, that's what you don't want to stir up, Putin? A 2024 survey from the Russian Public Opinion Research Center revealed that 33% of Russians believe he should stay above ground in the mausoleum, 30% think he should be buried right now, ASAP, and 27% think he should be buried when the generation who remembers him is gone. So the question is, will Lenin's body go back on display in 2027 when the renovations are done? They swear that he will, but there's already so much support for his removal and burial. What will 2 years out of the public eye do? Will his legacy fade, or in his absence will a kind of longing for Lenin build? Longing for Lenin is my romance novel. Maybe I'll just stop with the Titanic book. This video is brought to you by Patreon, not Patreon the company. They certainly don't sponsor me, but you, the people. It's very Lenin in a way. The people's Patreon, by which you support us. And there's a free tier also, by the way. So if donation is not on the cards, which is totally fine, it's a tough, strange time, free tier with us. And you see drafts of my novel Longing for Lenin.
Hey, Lenin. Longing for Lenin. I'm longing for Lenin. Oh, Lenin, I need to see you. Lenin, who wouldn't want to feel you? Longing for Lenin. I'm longing for Lenin. Ooh, I wanna know you, even though you're partly white. I gotta see you, even though your house got cracks. I'm longing for Lenin. Ooh, I'm longing for Lenin. Oh, Lenin, I'm coming for you, like so many have come before. Lenin, I'm coming for you, even if I have to bust your moldy door. Longing for Lenin. I'm longing for Lenin. Oh, you've been lying in state for 100 years. I'm tired of waiting shedding my tears, Lenin. Don't you go away again like you did in World War II. Siberia is too far away and we're all longing for you. Leave him alone, Putin, leave him alone, Yeltsin, leave him alone. Gorbachev and Khrushchev and Brezhnev and Stalin, get your own room. 'Cause nobody, I said nobody is longing for you. 'Cause they're all longing for Lenin. 'Cause Lenin is love. Longing for Lenin. Longing for Lenin. Oh, 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 Lenin. Lenin, I'm longing for you. Lenin, I'm coming for you.